Welcome to the woods. Spring, just around the corner. New beginnings. A new start. Time to have a clean up. Get rid of all the rubbish that we've accumulated over those winter months where nothing much can get done. And that's a reoccurring theme when you live the way I live. There are times of the year, periods of time, where things take place, where things are planted, where things are grown, where chicks are born, animals moved round into different pens, separated in order to breed the best livestock. Things are harvested, even on a small scale, picking tomatoes, digging up potatoes. New beginnings. For the past 3 years, we've been discussing what's going wrong. What's going wrong? And it's been an interesting chat, hasn't it? We've spoken about global conspiracies, national governments, mass immigration. We've spoken at length about what happened during the pandemic. We've spoken about good things and bad things. We've spoken quite a lot about off-grid living, how it can be achieved. We've spoken about self-sufficiency. I didn't ever want to get to that point where all I ever spoke about was the problems. It does seem to circle around to that, if only to point out that the solutions that are being offered are because of the problems that we face. I was going to talk primarily today about computer technology, about AI. And I dislike that term because every time I use it, people will tell me that it's not intelligence, that a computer can only do something that it's told to do, and that we're not at the point where it's going to have a humongous impact. I disagree, and we will get onto that. But there's so much happening so fast at the moment. There's talk throughout Europe of war. Not the two wars that are currently raging, one in the Middle East and one on our eastern border, but a new war, a bigger war, one that we need to prepare for. It's been spoken about by army officers, intelligence, by prime ministers, by politicians, by journalists, and by pundits throughout the internet. A new war to terrify the people. A new war to raise more money. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And at home, in the country I live in, much the same as throughout Europe, we're seeing the farmers suddenly standing up, pushing back. Some of the things they're speaking about now, people were unaware of. Farmers having to give over 10% of their land. Farmers having their subsidies cut. Farmers being offered incentives to stop farming. Farmers being hit not only by government legislation, but by big business. Big business and governments working hand in hand to destroy an infrastructure. And here, in the country I live in, we face a situation we've never faced before with mass immigration. Numbers the like of which we have never seen. In the last decade, in fact less than the last 10 years, the population has increased through migration in excess of 10 million people. That's a phenomenal amount. That's cities and cities and cities worth. And yet these new cities haven't emerged. What has happened is these people have been crammed into existing towns, now villages. The effect has been to utterly destroy social cohesion, trust, communities, to put an ever increasing pressure and stress on our infrastructure, on education, on our health service, on our housing stock. I touched on this in the last video, that it would seem to be an impossible equation to allow 750,000 people into your country and provide 150,000 homes. It's left us in a situation where our children can't buy homes. It's getting to the point where they can't afford to rent them. If they can, it will take nearly all of their income. It will leave them demoralised. It will leave them depressed. In a society where they feel they've been neglected, forgotten, left behind, uncared for, and they wouldn't be far wrong. And at the same time, the government is asking them to look to the future and maybe join the army to fight for that. It's already been spoken about many times of, yeah, that's a ludicrous scenario. To ask these young men to go and fight for a system and a society that has spent decades denigrating, misusing, abusing and neglecting them. Why would they ever? Everything we see, everything we understand happens for a reason. All of it. It's all interwoven. We've talked a lot over the last 3 years about groups like the WEF and the World Health Organization, the European Union, the United Nations. All of these unelected by us groups of people working towards global objectives that have a national impact. And everything they do is for a reason. These organisations are not populated by imbeciles. It may look like everything they do is retarded and stupid, that it makes no sense. But it's all for a reason. It's all planned out. It's all gameplayed beforehand. So what is the reason? Why is all this happening? Why over the last 3-4 years has everything increased in speed? Everything. Moving forward to something we all feel is approaching and yet have no idea what it is. And I haven't got a crystal ball sat here in the middle of the woods, but I have said before, and I'll stick to what I've said, which is the reason all of this happens is money. It's money. Money and power, and those two things are massively linked, especially today. The most powerful people in the world aren't necessarily prime ministers or presidents, but the most wealthy, the heads of banking institutes, hedge funds, global corporations that turn over billions. These people now wield power on the global stage. And the plans they have globally impact you in the country, town, city or village that you live in. The 15-minute city, the 20-minute neighbourhood is a real thing. It's been interesting for me over the last few months to watch my local town ticking off its boxes to achieve what it has to do for a 15-minute or 20-minute neighbourhood. It's a relatively small market town. The whole town will quite obviously be the 20-minute zone. And you can see the infrastructure being put in. You can see the smart cameras being fitted on every street corner. You can see the upgrades in sports facilities, recreational grounds. You can see small businesses closing down, being replaced by those O2 standard hyper businesses, the global chains, the out of town shopping area. All of this being put in place in real time. And I'm sure that they'll get what they want, which is that you will be contained within that massively diverse, restricted area. And you may be able to leave maybe once, maybe twice a week, maybe. But apart from that, why would you want to leave? Everything you need is now there. They'll make the world a very, very small place again. Control. And all of this because the financial institution, the whole financial structure globally has to change. It has to change because its time is up. It was never sustainable. It can't go on. The debt increases and becomes bigger than the institution itself. The interest on loans becomes unpayable. And the financial institution, that whole system of money, has been used to control populations, especially in the West, for decades and decades and decades. Your every waking moment really concerned and geared towards earning money and spending money, because that's what life has become. So if that whole system is going to change, they'll need a new system of control. And I think most of this was game played. Most of this was game played during the pandemic. How does a population react when it's told to stay at home and given most of the money it used to earn? We'll give you that money, but you have to remain at home. We'll give you that money, but you have to remain in your town. You can't travel more than 5 miles. Most people didn't seem to have a problem with that, because it was for the greater good. If they didn't have a problem then, they probably won't have a problem in the future. You see, we've got two things occurring at exactly the same time. Again, they're interwoven, which is the increased technology, computing technology, automation, leading to AI, and a new financial system that we're all well aware these digital currencies will be rolled out. Two things happening at the same time. The AI, the computing technology, is a difficult one. There are those watching this who will see AI as merely a tool that can be used. And it is a tool that can be used. And I can't be the only person who's both amazed and terrified just looking at the capabilities available so far. it will undoubtedly be used by nearly everyone. Which leads to the question, is it worth not using it then? And that's going to be a personal choice. But most people will use it. Most people will see it as a tool that can be used and make their life easier. And undoubtedly it is. My problem is not that it's a tool that can be used. My problem isn't even that it will wipe out huge swathes of the employment globally. We're already seeing that illustrators, artists, designers are being massively impacted. The text-based AI is taking the place of copywriters, screenwriters, even novelists. And it will get better and better and better and rapidly fast, increasing all of the time. But my problem isn't really with that. It leads to a scenario where there's an abundance, where people are left really with nothing to do. Oh, there will be jobs for a while. There will be jobs that cannot be replicated by automation or technology. But there isn't many. We can already see that transport, building, artistic work, middle management, data input, computer games design, all of these industries, filmmaking, all of those industries, and many, many, many more can, and therefore will, not only be impacted, but no longer need people. Now, from a purely small national perspective, how does a government run a country where nobody works? A government's money comes from taxing the people who pay them with the money they earn. If people aren't earning, which is increasingly the case in this country, where over 30% of people in employment are also in receipt of benefits, the government's paying money out but collecting nothing in. It cannot work. It does not work. So a new system has to be put in place. And it would seem to me that the changes we're seeing over the last 3 years and the changes we're going to see in the next 3 are coming faster and faster. Because everything has to change. It either changes completely, the whole of society, or they try to put technology back in the box, and they've already made the decision that that's not happening. There will be millions, if not billions, of very unhappy people globally, because it's going to be a global takeover, a global change. The financial system is global. When that goes, it has to be replaced, and at the same time, technology is going to be taking jobs left, right, centre. They're going to change everything at once. The event. Populations are going to have to be controlled. If you can contain them in a small area, it's much easier to do. If you can break down cohesion within that population, it's easier to control. Hence the massive rise in different peoples from different countries around the globe being bussed, flown and pedaloed into the country at an alarming rate. The destruction of social cohesion, the inability of people to pull together and fight back. There will come a time when enough people realise the enormity of the problem, the enormity of the situation and the solution about to be imposed on them. And they will have to make a choice to stay within that new system or to walk away. To touch on AI again briefly, I am amazed at what it can do. I'm even more amazed of where it's going. It is a remarkable tool. It's going to give individuals the ability to do things that they have never done before. You could go and make a film with your phone. You can write a novel and illustrate it with a few prompts. It's a tool the same as all those advancements have ever been. I've spoken before how, the computer packages and that replaced graphic designers, or the way graphic designers worked. But AI is different. It is the apex. Because of what it is, it negates the use of humans. It doesn't need you. Or the smallest amount of input from you. as to be negligible. The problem I have with it is, where does that leave us? It could give us the free time to do all those other things we wanted to do. What are those things? What is it you would like to do? And that's a problem, because most people don't know. They may give you a few flippant, off the cuff answers, but really, if you didn't have to work, if everything was available to you and you could do what you wanted, what would you do? What happens to a society like that? Does it degenerate faster? Does it become more creative? Will they allow it to progress naturally? I doubt it, because it's unpredictable. So they will control it. And as is always the case, we end up doing what they want. There have been huge steps taken by many people over the last few years to step away from this system, to step away from what they see coming. There have been groups in America and groups in France and Germany and this country, all looking at ways of returning to a more sustainable, land-based existence with smaller, cohesive societies. That will be our alternative. Bit of a rambling chat. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. I'll speak to you soon. Take it easy, you lot.